Okay, today we're going to be talking about group formation. You know, who joins groups, why they join groups, when they join groups. So this is where group formation begins. Okay, so basically, divide it up into 3 lectures. First one we'll be talking about, the factors that are involved in joining groups. Then we'll talk about issues about affiliation, as well as attraction. Okay? So let's talk about who joins groups. Okay, personality is a factor that influences whether or not a person is going to join a group. There are certain, basically, if you take a look here, the 5-factor model of personality talks about the big 5 personality traits. So basically, a lot of research on personality has discovered that you could pretty much narrow down personality, human personality, into these 5 major traits: extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness to experience. Basically, across different cultures, a person's personality can more or less be described by your varying combinations of these 5 relatively independent traits. So for example, one person can be very high on extroversion, low on agreeableness, middle of the road on conscientiousness, middle of the road on neuroticism, and maybe very highly open to experience, something like that. Well, someone else can have some kind of a different combination of those. So it's an important way of looking at the structure of personality. Okay. So what does this have to do with group formation? Well, there are certain parts of the Big 5 trait that seem to be related to group formation. One of them, most importantly, being extroversion. A person who is extroverted is going to be very sociable, want to be with other people, outgoing. Well, people who are high in extroversion, as an example, are going to be very much likely to be joining groups and becoming part of groups. Right? There are the sex differences regarding group formation, who joins groups. There are some differences there. Women tend to be higher in men in relationality. What that means is wanting to form close relationships with others. So they tend to want to. If you think about I remember we've talked about the fight or flight response versus the tend and befriend response. When you were excluded, the women might be more more likely to do the tend and befriend, building up relationships. And women tend to be more involved in intimate, smaller groups, while men might be joining more formalized groups, forming teams, let's say, on working on some kind of a task. Okay. Is it due to the fact that men are men and women are women? Maybe, but it could also be due to aspects of our culture about the kinds of roles that men are supposed to play. Women are supposed to play. Men are supposed to be the doers. Let's say they're supposed to be the ones out doing things, getting tasks done, doing the job, that kind of thing. But again, that reflects gender roles. It doesn't really have anything to do with actual sex of the person. There are various kinds of social motives for joining groups. These 3 needs here, need for affiliation, need for intimacy, need for power, are 3 very highly researched, highly studied needs that people have. So a need for affiliation is kind of a need to be with other people and be accepted by others and so on. Need for intimacy is a need for kind of a close relationships, not necessarily with a lot of people, but maybe with one or two people, to form a close emotional bond. And a need for power is a need to be able to be in control, to be able to have some control over others as well. So these three needs are clearly very much related to joining groups. Need for affiliation, it makes sense. You join groups to be with others, to be accepted by others. You enjoy being with them. Certainly joining groups will serve that need. A need for intimacy, perhaps better served by a group that will, like a primary group, like a family, or romantic relationships, really close friendships. Need for intimacy would be satisfied by joining these kind of close knit, emotionally satisfying groups. Need for power would certainly be relevant if a person wanted to find that they want to be in control, maybe perhaps be a leader of a group, or be able to have some, or even if not necessarily even being a leader of a group, but being a group that can accomplish great things, someone with a high need for power would certainly have that satisfied. Now, how are these? An interesting way in which these particular needs are measured is through projective tests such as the thematic apperception test, or TAT. With the TAT, a person might look at a picture, something like this, let's say, kind of an ambiguous picture, and the viewer is supposed to essentially come up with a story to explain what is going on, what's happening with the people in the picture, and by doing that, they would, their particular needs might be revealed. So the kind of story you tell might reflect someone's underlying needs. Like the ideas of these needs may be kind of under the surface. You may not necessarily want to openly admit you have a high need for power, but it's reflected in the things that you do and the things that you see, and the way you react to things. So, anyway. Another issue about motivation, you think about the fundamental interpersonal relations orientation theory, the FIRO theory. And again, you can see the connection here between need for intimacy and so on, but there are these needs here that are served by joining groups. And these needs are to either receive or express inclusion, control, and or affection. So, all of these are accomplished by joining groups. Start with a need for inclusion. Need for inclusion, by expressing towards other people, you want to try to be with other people, you want to actually join other people. You want it from other people that you want to be accepted by others. You want to be, want people to want you to do things. And so this would be an inclusion, in the sense that, to be involved. And this sounds similar to the need for affiliation. The need for control, which kind of sounds like the need for power, expressed towards other people. You want to take charge of things when you're with people. Want it from other people. Maybe you want to have other people lead you, have other people control you. Sometimes there are people who join groups not because they want to lead others, but maybe because they want to be led and they want to have somebody else take the charge of their behavior. Finally, a need for affection, which again sounds kind of like a need for intimacy. You want to have, express toward others, you want to have close relationships with others. Want it from other people. You would like other people to feel close to you and be intimate with you. So, as you can see, these three, basically, according to Schutz, these are fundamental needs that we all have, and we can certainly see how joining groups would certainly satisfy these needs. Now, anxiety, and by the way, anxiety can also be called neuroticism. You remember the big five traits we talked about before? Find that slide there. Yeah, neuroticism is kind of like anxiety, and with neuroticism, maybe somebody would be less comfortable joining groups. They feel that maybe joining groups would perhaps make them nervous. They have social anxiety. So perhaps someone who is low in extroversion, high in neuroticism, would probably not be particularly happy joining groups. Let's look at another way of describing us, and this is our attachment style. If you've ever taken psychology across the lifespan, or developmental psychology, or something like that, you might have heard of Ainsworth's strange situation, having children in a strange environment with a stranger. The mother leaves them there, and to kind of see how the child reacts. Does the child cry? Does the child seek, run to the mother and hold her when the mother returns to the room? That kind of thing. And again, the idea is to figure out the child's attachment style. And research on attachment has extended to adults, and the idea is that your attachment style of childhood may reflect your attachment style as an adult as well. And Bartholomew talks about these two factors, anxiety and avoidance, as factors which reflect a person's attachment style. So, for example, and it leads into these four basic attachment styles based on these four quadrants here. So, for example, someone who has low anxiety, who basically, low anxiety, so they're not nervous nervous, and they have low avoidance. They don't avoid other people, so they're not nervous around others, and they don't go out. They don't avoid other people. These would reflect secure attachment styles. Think about a romantic relationship, let's say. Someone with a secure attachment style, they don't have any problem getting close to other people, and they're not nervous about doing so. Okay? Let's take a look at someone who has a high level of anxiety and a high level of avoidance. This would be someone who has a fearful attachment style. So here, they have a high anxiety. So they have a negative view of themselves. They're very nervous. They're insecure. So they have a negative view of themselves. It's a high anxiety. And they also avoid others. And they avoid others because they are afraid of being rejected. So they stay away from other people. They may want to be with other people, but they stay away from them because they're afraid of being rejected. And they're kind of a negative view of themselves. Take a look at the preoccupied attachment style. Preoccupied individuals, they want to seek out relationships with other people, but they are very much worried about rejection, so they kind of have a negative view of themselves. And when they do have relationships with others, they tend to be kind of clingy. They're very much relationship focused. They build on the relationship. It's the relationship. It's the relationship. It's the relationship. And they could be kind of smothering. And so it's something but again, this has to do with their fear of rejection. So they do whatever they can to avoid rejection, but they do nevertheless want to seek out other people. That's that low avoidance. Finally, the dismissing attachment style. Basically, they avoid joining with other groups. They're not interested in joining other groups, but they have low anxiety. They don't have a negative view of themselves. They may have a positive view of themselves. But for them, relationships, social relationships, are just not that important to them. They're perfectly happy and fine being solitary, being by themselves. And if somebody rejects them, they don't really have a low anxiety. They don't really fear rejection. If someone rejects them, okay, don't worry about it. I can find someone else some other time. Don't worry about it. They don't need anybody else. They're kind of very independent. So again, these four attachment styles, you may even see some of this in your relationships with others, perhaps. But what does this have to do with joining groups? Well, the people who are more on the low avoidance range, the preoccupied and secure, they would certainly be more likely to be joining groups. Okay, you know, particularly in the secure, you know, they have low anxiety. They don't go out of their way to avoid people. So they join people. They enjoy it. They are not threatened by it. So these are the people who you would see joining groups. Okay, people also, when they want to join groups, they have various attitudes, expectations that might factor into, um, you know, what are they expecting to happen when they join groups. Some people just have a preference. Their attitudes towards group members. I'd rather work by myself. If you have a preference for working in groups, then you're going to join it. If you have belief that people are, when you join a group, that people are going to do their share and everybody's going to do their part, you're going to be more likely to. If you on the other hand, if you believe that people aren't going to pull their weight, then you perhaps may not want to join groups. Negative performance beliefs here. If you feel as if that working in groups will lead to lower performance, you're probably going to be less likely to want to join groups. If you think that if you have positive beliefs about the group performance, then you certainly want to join groups. You think that it's going to be effective. Okay. So if you have had positive experiences with groups, that is a major predictor in whether or not you'd want to join groups in the future. If you had negative experiences in the past, then you're probably going to be, you're less likely to join groups later on. Okay. So your positive experiences, that's what you've had in your past. It's going to have a direct relationship with actually seeking groups. It's also going to increase your value of seeing that groups are valuable to you. You're going to want to seek groups. Okay. So the people who would joining group, if you think about, so the research regarding from Brentop et al. The groups that the people in high school, when they see their groups as important, they see their groups as enjoyable. At least they're having positive experiences in groups when they're joining groups. And again, they want to seek groups in college, and they have a positive. They see joining groups as having a positive value.